Okay, so we are now live, and welcome to the Marketing Lifeline's Friendly Friday with like-minded people who just like to share and share like. And today we're joined by the lovely Candice, Lucia, Louise, Louise.
Either or, it's totally fine.
Yeah, it's always something that even herself, when I hear she's on the phone, people will say, and she just kind of goes, whatever comes out. So we'll just stick with Lucia. Business Director at Orange Inc. And today we're going to be talking about the topic public relations, which I think often for marketing people as well and entrepreneurs, you know, we're not always sure how this fits in with the bigger picture. And I think it's a totally exciting topic and also the relevance of it. So yeah, just thanks to you, Candice, for joining us this lovely Friday. And I look forward to sharing with you.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And just to do a quick intro, as they always are, just a very short bio of our guest. Candice is a business director at Orange Inc., a strategic communications and brand agency who has spent the better part of 13 years harnessing the power of communications to network and build relationships. Having worked with many brands in the times of need, Brand Crisis makes her tick and strives to aid clients in delivering transparency authentically. As an overall communication strategist and expert, she's digitally inclined, strategy prone, experienced marketing and communications consultant and business director. Brand strategy and creativity are central to her expertise, backed by overall agency management and business development. She believes in the power of relationships, creating opportunities that foster mutual success. So thank you so much. Yeah, Candice and I have also done a bit of work together alongside each other in support of strategy. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. So yeah, so let's go jump into our questions so we can learn a little bit today on this awesome Friday. So maybe just let's start with Orange Inc. and tell us a little bit about what you guys do and what you, as you ladies do, as I know it's a ladies.
Or ladies.
Or ladies. So tell us a little bit about Orange Inc.
Cool. So Orange Inc. is a full service communications agency. So we have a partner network of brand specialists and experts in various fields across marketing and branding. Internally as an agency, we're focused on strategic communications and driving these for our clients across all different areas. So media relations, internal comms, crisis communications, stakeholder engagement, and those kinds of things. So we do it all, but we ensure we have specialists and specialist teams in various areas of brand and marketing, so we can bring our clients a full service offering.
Okay, that sounds awesome. And I love the word crisis. I'm sure that must be a really hard one to crack, because that's unexpected, no warning. Yep. And yeah, I'm sure that keeps you ladies on your toes.
Yeah, and especially today, because there's so much of it.
I'm sure. So let's talk a little bit about touch points as one of our themes for the week, and ones that we have control over, which we are aware of. And then obviously those that we don't, like obviously PR being considered as one of them. How do we kind of take control or not control of it, and what explain are PR considered to be one we have control of or not, should I rather say that? Can you explain that to us? Because I think the perception that a lot of people have is PR is something that develops by itself and we maybe have a little bit of control over it. But yeah, let's hear from you as a PR expert what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, look, I think, PR is a difficult one because you definitely have control of a portion of your PR. So when you're talking about traditional communications or, communication strategy in terms of brand awareness and driving thought leadership, you definitely have a layer of control over that part of your strategy. But of course, we're in a very different environment, and because everything is digital first, you don't always have control of the other side, which is the crisis side. So I would say yes and no, we have control, and we absolutely don't have control. What needs to happen though, and what a lot of brands are moving towards, is that they're trying to gain control of the uncontrollable, if that makes sense. So it's about defining clear communications and brand strategy around the stuff you can control, as well as the potential issues that may arise over time. It is a difficult one though, because with social media at play, especially from a consumer brand perspective, you're always in the firing line. You never know what's around the corner. You never know what's coming, and some things you simply can't plan for. What is quite important though, and how we're evolving kind of the control of the PR touch point on the other side, on the uncontrollable space, if you want to call it that, is we are coming closer to the larger brand team, whether that's agencies, different brand leads, marketing leads, PR leads within a business. And we're making sure that we're looking at all the content across the spectrum, in terms of we're looking at it through a different lens and making sure we're sensitizing that content, or what might be put out across the brand, across different teams with different diversity, and that kind of thing. So what we're doing is, if you look at things like culture, politics, all of that kind of thing plays a massive role in how we deliver a message to any audience. And I suppose back in the day, PR sat in its own little bubble and marketing sat in its own little bubble, but what needs to happen, and what is evolving over time to try and control the uncontrollable, is that we are coming closer together to make sure we're looking at these things with a very fine lens and making the PR touch points a little bit more controllable than it may have been before.
Yeah, that's actually a very valid point coming from traditional corporate marketing. It was exactly that. Everything PR was outsourced. Everything marketing related, like, kind of was managed. And as you said, it kind of worked almost like PR became a crisis management only, and it didn't actually drive and help the brand.
Exactly.
Now, because we've got all these different touch points, we actually need to take control of it. And as you say, unitedly with both marketing, brand, and PR kind of coming together. So that's a very valid point, and it's good to know, because you guys often talk about communication, but we also talk about communication. So are we sending out the right message? Do we have control? Because often I'll say to clients as well, like, when last did you do kind of just even a content audit to see what's out there? Because we also lose touch as to what is out there, what are people saying, etc. And those are the things that one needs to be.
And the culture piece is really important. And that's where a lot of brands are going wrong. You can't just put a message out based on your and my view. We've got a whole diverse set of people that our messaging needs to target, whether it's crisis messaging or general brand messaging. We need to sensitize that information internally so that you don't get it wrong, or you try your best not to get it wrong.
Absolutely. Well, that definitely comes down to identifying and understanding your audience better. But,
yep.
Totally. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, so then let's talk a little bit about what makes PR so much more, say, powerful than advertising, as we like to think or say.
I think the creatives would not be happy with that question or that framing at all. It's been such a contentious issue for a long time. But I think what's quite important, and in all honesty, again, it's moving towards this as teams come together. PR is more powerful than advertising. They both have a very specific place, right? The PR campaign supports the advertising campaign, and vice versa. So collaboration and brand cohesiveness is crucial for brands to cut through the clutter and make sure that they're bringing something really powerful to market. But if I had to kind of just take it on and say, PR is more powerful than advertising, I would say one area that PR does definitely deliver on, and we've seen it work for a number of clients where, the objective message is what's landing them some business or getting them some great leads. Or if we're telling a story on LinkedIn from a PR thought leadership perspective, it's bringing in some thinking around the business. So objectivity is what PR allows, right? It drives expertise, insights, and proper thought leadership to specific areas or to specific topics, so that the listener and the reader or viewer, whatever platform it's on, has an objective opinion instead of a pure brand message. So in a nutshell, PR is a story, right? PR tells a story, it creates awareness, it drives understanding of certain topics or certain market messages to drive education. And advertising is a brand punt. Advertising's place is to drive sales, right? To create leads, to push a different agenda. They both have their place. They just have a different place depending on what the objective is. So it is powerful. Is it more powerful than advertising? I'm absolutely not going to say that, because I work with far too many creatives who would be really mad if I said that.
And we're just talking about collaborating and growing together as creatives.
Exactly. So let me not throw them under the bus.
But I think it's something as well that one has to look at, and it's that kind of like push and pull strategy. So
absolutely,
we work together totally. There's a place for advertising and there's a place for PR. And I think just to that perception again, in terms of the role that PR plays in today's day is far bigger than it was 10, 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
Whereas now we kind of have to drive the audience forward with that thought leadership, that kind of educational approach, rather than the selling and telling and creating those stories and really bringing our brands to life through stories. So I totally hear you. And again, I'm not going to take either side, because don't worry, marketing and advertising and branding are also 4 different topics we can go into, with PR as one. So agreed. I think collaboratively we all have a place to be. So just sharing now in terms of some top tips we like to every week. The experts come in and share some of their top tips, and 3, as many as you wish, but 3 is quite sufficient. In terms of how businesses or even just entrepreneurs can try and enhance their image, in terms of their PR and what they need to look at or consider.
Look, I think what's quite important is you need to define whether you're ready for PR. PR is a job. It's not something that happens by itself. I think you need to be committed to the process. So that's probably my top tip, is if you're going to venture into PR and into telling your story and proactively driving your message, you need to be committed to it. Media will pitch something, and last week and then this week, 2 hours before the show goes live, they want to speak to you. And that's just the nature of media. They press, the newsrooms are small. So, that's just an example of commitment is crucial to this process being a success, And obviously be very open with an agency or whoever's driving your PR in terms of what do you want to achieve, and realize that PR does not drive leads. PR drives awareness. So that's probably, my first tip is be committed and understand what you're getting into and what result you're going to get out. That's the first one. The second one would be, be transparent and honest about your journey. So often what you'll see is brands, they've got a brand position, they know who they want to be, they start their PR, but then Joe Soap competitor number 1 will do something in the market, and then the CEO will be like, oh no, we got to do that because our competitor's doing that. That's not your journey, that's their journey. Be intentional about your strategy and stick to that. Don't shudder because your competitor's doing something else. If you stick to your strategy and you drive, obviously keep your ear to the ground and see where you need to shift or change or tweak your strategy, but make sure you're honest to your brand and honest to yourself, because if you're not, it will come through in your media conversations, in your internal comms, even brand comms. It will really detract from what you're trying to achieve. So, consistency, transparency, and honesty are really critical. And while we're talking about consistency, you got to be consistent in your message, right? Make sure you understand what is your message, what are we saying, and how are we saying it? Awareness and education takes time. It's not a one project wonder and then you've made it in the world of PR, or in the world of thought leadership. You need to commit yourself to the process and make sure you're being consistent around your message and give it some time. I think a lot of brands, what they don't understand, and then they dip in and dip out. They do a quick project, they do like 2 interviews because they're launching some great product, which they think is great, maybe isn't that great to everyone else. They don't really find the story, it doesn't work for them, and then that's it, then PR didn't work for them. It can't work like that. It can for certain things. If you're a big, massive corporate brand, you can dip in and out of PR and tell a few stories because people know you. If you're a smaller brand and you're not that well known, it takes a little bit longer to create awareness. So commit to a 6-month PR strategy to start with, so that you can gain that consistency and gain the market awareness over time and see some results. You're not going to see it in a month or 2 months, or a project here and then 6 months later you do another little project. It can be done. It's not a smart use of money and time, and people will forget who you are. If you're consistently speaking to your audience over a longer period of time, you become synonymous with your business.
Agreed. Okay, well, that was quite a lot of insight, but I've kind of captured them in kind of 3 tips. Most importantly, as you've said, are you ready?
Yeah.
You've got to just decide, is it that journey? Because as you've also mentioned, it's committing to that process. Number 2, really just being transparent about your journey and staying honest to what you want to put out to the market and your message, because often people get distracted by other stuff. And I agree, it's not being authentic. Just stick to your original plan. And lastly, consistent in your message as well, and giving yourself the time to get response, so at least performance or turnaround. Or I agree. I think sometimes people also expect putting out something amazing is going to get many people's heads turning, and unfortunately that's not how it happens, right? So consistency is most important. Give yourself a minimum of 6 months. So I think that sums it up. Is that cool?
Yep, that's perfect. Spot on.
So I think, for me, it applies basically across the board with anything else. Give yourself time. It's time to create this awareness, time to create this message, time for that consistency. Give that person time. And that's the most important thing. Unfortunately, and I'll say this again and again, marketing, PR, advertising, whatever it is that you want to call it, there's no silver bullet approach, and there's no winning formula. But yes, it does come down to doing a bit of research, having the right people on board, getting your audience and message right, and then consistently putting good stuff out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So just in closing, so in the times we find ourselves, which, as you've mentioned, kind of is a crisis in most business, why do you believe PR is a key part of a marketing strategy? And although you have alluded to it already in the previous answers, but maybe just to sum up for us again, in terms of this PR that often is maybe an afterthought or not considered as a full strategy.
Yeah. I think it's less so an afterthought than it used to be, as we've said. And what we're seeing is it's actually never been more important than now. We're seeing it in our business and in the industry at large. There's a much larger demand for PR and strategic brand comms than pre-COVID, for example. I think the reason is that the market is so competitive, no matter which industry you're in, and brands are fighting to either survive, stay relevant, or find their place to remain sustainable. So the unique and consistent storytelling has become a key focus in marketing strategy. And PR plays a fundamental role in that space. And again, as we come together closer as agencies, across the marketing spectrum, we are better able to define these messages and help land them. But also from a PR perspective, we come to this party with a different lens, right? We come bearing our prophet of doom hat, which is not always the greatest one, but we are always the risk averse team, right? Not necessarily risk averse, just more the devil's advocate. We are always putting the crisis lens on every single story, whether it's a great brand story, a dodgy one. We are those people that always come. I mean, in fact, I'm working on a massive project at the moment with a client that's been a client of mine for years, and I'm always the girl going, guys, have you thought about this? I'm worried about this. What do you think about this? Shouldn't we consider this? But what if they go here on social, and they're probably just like, oh, Candice, seriously, will you just back off? But, we're playing a crucial role. And in fact, today, the brand came back and said, guys, we really got to consider this because it's a concern, which from a creative perspective, they don't always get it, and they shouldn't, because it's not their job. Their job is to be creative, energetic. Our job is to be very inwardly focused. And I think putting those two together and finding that balance is where PR is playing a massive role today.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So that's just bringing that that kind of balance together, as you said, being that not pessimist, let's not call pessimist, but being that onlooker, kind of seeing out what's happening, keeping an alarm, thinking, okay, if this happens, this one might say, what's the reaction going to be? Agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we kind of find our space more in the creative space, creating these awesome ideas, and then you kind of going, just be careful. Yeah.
Doesn't always make you popular, but it's okay.
No, I hear you, but there's nothing wrong holding up the red flag. Sometimes it's needed for some brands,
exactly,
especially in massive in corporate space. I'm sure it's used quite often. So so that's us for today. Thanks so much, Candice, for your time and spending this with us and sharing your insights. It's really been great to hear a little bit about PR. I think it's been a long time. I myself actually spoken to somebody in the PR space. So just saying thanks so much for sharing with us. And then
thanks.
We'll see everybody again next week at 12 o'clock for our Friendly Fridays. And if you enjoyed the interview, please give us a comment and go on and share it. And we look forward to seeing you guys same time, same place next week. And it's happy Friday to everybody. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.